Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I know we have a lot of things running around.
Right.
I apologize. I really thought you were asking me to push it back towards 11:45.
Yeah.
I looked at the message. You were 100% correct. But I'll tell you one thing. I've been excited to talk to you for multiple reasons. But honestly, you're the second female that I get to have in the podcast.
Okay.
And you, from the little bit of time that I've gotten to talk to you, you have achieved a lot.
Thank you.
More than other people have done. And I've known, you told me, is you've done a lot of these things on your own. You figured out how to get things done through school, education, becoming one of the first members in your family to graduate from college. You have an awesome history to share with people.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to be able to find out more about you today. And remembering that hopefully somebody on the other side of the screen watching this podcast, listening to the shores, they get to see it's like, they too can become an amazing woman. They too can make a big impact in their community, in their life, and showing your story, showing your testimony. And that's what I hope we can share today, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like a plan?
Yep, sure,
So,
absolutely.
Welcome everybody. This is Road Conversations. I'm with Andrea De Leon. Managing Director of the Keeping Riverside Beautiful and Clean, or what is the exact title?
Executive Director of Keep Riverside Clean and Beautiful.
So what is Keep Riverside Beautiful and Clean?
So it is an organization. First we're a division of the Chamber of Commerce. I kind of say we are the nonprofit division of the Chamber of Commerce. We bring volunteers together throughout, the Inland Empire, not just Riverside, to do beautification projects that will improve the city. So anything from litter pickup to graffiti abatement to mural installations to purchasing items that are going to be helpful in preventing litter or preventing things that might damage our community in the sense of, trash or, just things that don't make the city look pretty.
How do you achieve that? Because from me living in Riverside for 3 years now, and unfortunately there's a large population of homelessness.
Right.
How do you guys attack that? Trying to make sure that you keep everything that you just said, but then it's an uphill battle. How have you been able to manage and oversee what is happening within the community to identify the things that need to be worked on? How do you delegate that task?
Right. So the unhoused or homeless population or situation, that's kind of something that we don't really get involved in because it's a different kind of, it's a whole different kind of beast that needs to be tackled. We specifically look for areas that maybe there's a high traffic area that gets littered, the wind picks up the litter and it gets brushed up against a fence or, there might be greenways from the palm fronds. So we try to, or maybe there's illegal dumping in an area. So we try to get areas that really need the most help, that experience these types of things more often. With the unhoused or homeless situation, there's a lot of aspects to it that we are not capable of. We don't have the resources for. You need social services, you need police department, you need housing services, sometimes addiction services, things like that. We are solely on litter abatement. We do planting, we do painting, things like that. We do encounter, when we're out at our cleanups, we do encounter some homeless or vagrants, and we, call PD and they bring out their pop team or their PSET team, and they have a whole wonderful setup where they go and they engage with these people and help them get services. Most of the time, we've never really had an issue. They understand the people that are there. They understand what we're trying to do, and they move along. They don't bother us. It's kind of a mutual respect. We try to make sure that we don't bother anybody either. We're just there to...
You've never been in a situation that your team feels unsafe or that you have felt unsafe?
Yeah, we have. But then we just, we make the call and, my project coordinators are awesome. And they'll let me know, hey, Andrea, this is what's going on, and I'll tell them, direct them to PD. If for some reason, PD can't get out there, then we always have a plan B, C, D, E, and F. So if we need to
okay.
place volunteers in a different location, or we need to change it up, the type of project that we're doing, we will do that, because that's our main priority, is the safety of the volunteers.
So you as a director, how do you find the areas that you guys need to be working on? Because I know you guys do the big, beautiful, the big cleanup.
Right.
There's a lot of things that you're putting together. But from behind the scenes, what is your day-to-day to make sure that you're coordinating everything?
So we have, I was really lucky to come into this program and have a great foundation, right? So there was already, locations put in place. So normally, and we have, I think we have about maybe 12 different programs that we do different projects.
Okay.
But our main projects, we go out in each ward of the city of Riverside. There's 7 wards, and then usually we start out by picking a park.
Okay.
That'll be our central location. That's where we do our staging, and then we try to branch out from that park.
Okay.
We try to choose parks that maybe it needs a lot of attention. We know that the surrounding areas needs a lot of attention, and that's kind of where we usually start.
Okay.
We'll pick the park. We coordinate with Parks and Rec to set up there. Then we start to go out and we do like site checks.
Okay.
And at this point, we kind of know if there's a lot of traffic. A lot of vehicles go through there. A lot of times, the wind picks up the litter and it'll push it certain places. Like I said before, illegal dumping. It just depends on the location. Different locations in the city have a different dynamic, and we kind of already know where to go.
I remember one time you said that you love trash because trash, it brings in revenue. And as a nonprofit organization, obviously having to find the resources to execute all these plans you're putting together, it's crucial. What did you mean when you said, I love trash because trash means revenue, trash means money? What is it that other people don't see that you do see? That there's something behind it, the way you see it.
Yeah, there's, trash is, revenue. But it's because there's so many things that we are able to do that maybe sometimes the city can't do, or maybe, the trash haulers can't do, because we're boots on the ground. We have access to more people. And because we have access to more people, they're able to see, what's going on in their surrounding neighborhoods and in the city. And because of that, we are able to go after certain grants or certain sponsorships or certain monies that come in that maybe, big business cannot, because they're focused on generating their own revenue, and we are focused on, we're civic centered, and we're giving back to the community. So it was, that's kind of my pun, and I say, oh yeah, trash is money. Everybody knows it's, historically trash is big business. But in our sense, it is, we are able to get on the ground, see what needs the most help, and we are able to, go after funding or sponsorships or grants that will help, grow our programs, or engage, certain people that maybe not, wouldn't normally be engaged. We have a big population of citizens and residents in the city of Riverside that maybe most people wouldn't engage them because maybe they're from the poverty level, or maybe they're, minorities or what have you. That population of people are probably our biggest supporters of our program, because they genuinely feel that they want to make their neighborhoods better as well. Like they understand our mission, and so we are able to engage people that way. When we generate revenue for our programs, and so. I try to make sure that we bring in money so that we can give that money back into the community to make, these beautification efforts. And in part to show, that we are trying to beautify the city, but also to show other people, look, if we can do it, you can do it.
You can be a part of it,
Yeah, you can be a part of it, too. You can be impactful with us.
Yeah.
And we invite you to come. We are very inclusive. We want everybody. And I'm very proud to say that, we walk in the middle. We don't care where you come from, what you look like, what your political background is. Come work with us. If you want to help, everybody deserves to live in a beautiful space.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And those are some of the things that I do like about the city. There's areas that you can actually see, and you walk around and it's like, okay, it's not like some areas in other cities that I've been around. It's like, man, they could really use some work. But then it's easier to say they could use the work, but okay, who's going to do the work?
Right.
If us as humanity, we're adding to the problem, we're jumping the leader, we're doing all these things. Well, why don't we go and pick it up? But that is kind of like what you guys are doing for the city. How long have you been the director?
It's going on 2 years.
2 years now. What is the biggest difference that you've noticed that the program has impacted within the city versus cities that don't have it?
I think that because we are not, a city entity, like we're not a government entity, we're not, regulated by, the stipulations of the rules, and rightfully so, right? Those rules are in place for a reason. But we are able to get things done sometimes at a faster rate.
Yeah.
We don't
cut after the red tape a lot.
Right. And and I completely understand that those are there in place for a reason. But we are able to get things done at a faster rate. Sometimes we come in with fresh eyes that maybe other people don't see. But also we're there as a tool for the city. We are not trying to come in and overpower what the city is doing. I think one of the greatest things about the city of Riverside is that they have put forth a plan and they continue to go forward with that plan and continue to make measures with those plans, right?
Okay.
And so I've been fortunate to sit in some of these conversations, sit into these meetings, and you hear the residents and you hear the council people, you hear the mayor, what they want to do. And so in my brain, I'm like, okay, well, where do we fit in this?
You see it differently.
Where can we contribute and help them accomplish this mission
so
that they have?
you work hand to hand with the city. Obviously, this is a nonprofit from the Riverside Chamber of Commerce, but you work hand to hand with the city. And what has been their approach or the reception towards your program from the city?
Oh, they're awesome. They embrace us. I've had ideas, and it's always very rarely they've told me no.
Okay.
And I think because they understand my perspective and what we are trying to do, just like the chamber, they're there to try to help businesses, and we're trying to help people grow their business and do well, And so we come in on the other side and, we're in the background and trying to just support people in the city in the umbrella of beautification as much as we can.
Have other either cities or other chambers approached you to say, like, how can we do this in our city? Like,
Yeah, I've had people call me and say, hey, Andrea, like I've seen, in San Diego they have a big program, and I see in Fresno they have a big program, very similar to ours, but we're not there. You guys are the closest. Can we partner?
Okay.
So we have partnered with other, I guess, schools outside of the city of Riverside, but we bring them back to the city of Riverside. We have a contract that we fulfill, and we need to stay within the city limits of Riverside.
Okay.
But I've been on phone calls with different council members from different cities, and they've seen what we do, and I kind of guide them. I let them know, hey, this is what you do. This is how you engage your community. This is this is where to get supplies from.
Okay.
I've loaned them supplies, and so. It's important because, it's not like we have a big gate around the city of Riverside. People navigate in and out, right?
Yeah.
So if we're saying, we're going to only stop here and only clean up to here, well, the trash from maybe, Marana Valley or Jurupa or vice versa, it's going to go back and forth, right? So, we do need to have those partnerships and that relationship
with the
and
neighboring
engagement.
cities especially.
Yeah.
So 2 years being the director. What were the 2 years prior?
So 2 years prior, let me see. Before that, I came from the city of Riverside. I worked in the Public Works Department.
Okay.
And I actually engaged with the previous executive director, and she, asked me, what was my background and, what did I do before? And so her and I, had a good working relationship. And then she, we talked about possibly taking over for her. And then I went through the interview and application process. But before that, I actually went back to my roots because back in, I believe it was 2015. I had been a teacher for 16 years, and I got burnt out. And
what grades were you teaching?
Junior high.
Okay.
6th, 7th, 8th grade.
What school districts were you at?
I would actually work for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles.
Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Okay.
So I was a middle school teacher. I started out as English and math. And then I ended up with science. I was a science teacher.
Okay.
But I was 16 years. I had been in education since I was probably about, I think, maybe 12, because I started out as a tutor.
Okay.
And then I was a substitute teacher, and then I went into full-time teaching. And I was just burnt out. And it was a very difficult transition because I had never wanted to be anything else. In the 4th grade, I had wonderful teachers growing up and very impactful. And so when I decided to leave teaching, I didn't really have a plan.
Okay.
I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I was having an effect.
What burned you out about it the most? I mean, 12 years is 12 years.
I think that it was a combination of things. There was things going on in my personal life. There was, a lot of changes, just society-wise.
Okay.
A lot of changes in the education system as well, and the education, ideology.
Okay.
One of my first mentors, she was a nun. She was very rigorous. She was very stern, and I taught very similar to how she did.
Okay.
And so, as a lot of people know in this day and age, there's a very fine line in the way that, if you're too rigorous or you're too stern, then students don't like that, and it has changed to where before, when we were growing up, if we got in trouble at school, we were in trouble at home.
Okay.
Well, then I started to see the shift where students, when they got in trouble at school, parents were starting to come back and point the finger at the teachers.
Okay.
And then also, I felt like I was starting to wear hats that I wasn't qualified for. So I was becoming a therapist for parents. I was becoming, teaching parenting school skills to parents. I was becoming a babysitter. I was all these things that I just didn't have the skills or the capability or the time for, and it was just very draining.
The way it got heavy.
Mm-hmm, it got very heavy, and I just felt like I wasn't able to do my job in the capacity that I wanted to, because it was just
because you're having to do other things
right.
other than just care for your students.
Right, and I think though. I don't want to place blame on anybody, but I think how I am just as a person is that I like to look at the whole picture. Mm-hmm. And if there's things that are wrong or there's things that need to be fixing, I'm trying to fix. And so just naturally, I was trying to fix things that I didn't have the capability.
To fix them, yeah.
And it was weighing heavy on myself. And then also, I was, my father had just died. I had just went through a divorce. There was a lot of things going on at home that, something had to give.
What cities did you grow up in?
I grew up in El Monte mainly. Okay. But my father is from Lincoln Heights, the Happy Valley area. Okay. And then, so we grew up a little bit there. We grew up a little bit in Alhambra and then in Bassett.
Okay. When you went to college, because I remember you told me you were one of the first ones from your family to graduate, or are you the only one that has graduated from your family now?
From my siblings, I was the first one to actually graduate high school.
That's awesome.
My sister and my brother actually went back. My older brother and sister went back and got their GED.
Okay.
But I was the first one. I'm the first and only one to graduate with my bachelor's and my master's.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Master's in what?
Education.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So how does Andrea looks back at little Andrea and now everything that you have achieved? You work at city government positions as a public servant. You're the director of an organization, of a nonprofit. When you look back and there's other girls your age, just identify yourself with the female community, that you're going through so much adversity. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's and I'm going through the whole timeline. We'll get to the point is where you get to the point that you got burned out. You had to go through a divorce, then you had to change your whole life and go into a whole different direction. But before you got to that point, how was the Andrea trying to figure out how was she going to fit in life? Because by now you've done a lot of amazing things. But when you look back and you look at little girls that age, mm-hmm. how would you approach them? What would be the advice that you would give them to a female?
Well, I think that, and I have to say this, regardless, I did grow up in a very volatile mm-hmm. Household and childhood. Okay. But my parents did instill some very strong values in me. My mom was very much about education. Okay. My dad was extremely intelligent, even though he had like a 7th grade education. Hmm. Taught me about politics, taught me about the ways of the world. But it was, I could hear, because where we were from, there was this stigma that, you're going to grow up, people from a young age telling me, you're going to grow up this way because your parents are this way. And, I checked all the boxes. I was a teen mom. I was, Latina, Chicana. I came from a gang-infested family. We came from poverty. We were on welfare. So I had heard numerous times over and over again, you're just going to be another statistic. Okay. You're going to be another statistic. And I just could hear, like, my mom saying, no, go to school. Be educated. Is this the life that you want to live? And she would tell me, look around. Is this how you want to live? Do you want to live like this your whole life? But also, on the flip side, because I did grow up in a volatile family, I didn't want to be that way as an adult. I wanted to be happy. And that was always my thing. I want to be happy. I want to be happy. And so I knew that one of the ways to be happy was to get out of the situation that I was in. And one of those pathways was education. Okay. Another way was I for some reason, and I don't know if this is an innate feeling in all little kids, but I wanted to know who God was. I didn't know who God was. I didn't know religion. We weren't brought up in church. We never went to church. My mom's reasoning was because when she was a kid, it was force-fed to her. So she had a kind of a disdain for it. And so, so naive, didn't know. I go to church with my, one of my friends as a kid. Everything was over my head because I didn't understand it. Yeah. I would go to school I'd go to church with one of my cousins, didn't know what it was. I was at a point in my life, I remember being about like maybe 13 or 14, thinking that there was a special passcode that I needed to talk to God, that people learned in church. And I wanted to learn that passcode because I wanted to be able to talk to God. And then obviously we know that's not true. You could just talk.
You can just talk to them. He's there waiting for us.
Yeah. And then when I was a teen mom, when I got pregnant, it was a very negative response from my mom and some family members. And so the people that took me in were very faith-based. They were Catholics. Okay. And I think that, and I kind of got a little bit off topic.
No, this is perfect.
I think that it was very important because, I knew that I didn't want to raise my family or be an adult in this toxic and volatile place. So what was the exact opposite of that? Well, it was God. It was church, So I deviated that way, and I tried to encompass everything. And so if we go back to being, a young girl, it's like, keep your vision open. Don't let people, check those boxes for you. And they might be checked, by all means. When I was younger, I thought, I don't want to be this, thing that people are saying I am. And I was very, anti-Chicano in a sense, because back then, if you considered yourself a Chicano, you were a Cholo. Okay. And I wasn't a Cholo. I'm not a Cholo by any means. But people would tell me that's not culture. That is my culture. And so everything I wanted to be, I thought I had to, get away from that. Okay. And as I got older, I realized I didn't have to. I could embrace everything. And everything, all the bad, all the good, everything, all the bad things that I learned from my parents, all the good things I learned from my parents and my family, embrace it and take what I needed to be a better person. And that's really how it kind of evolved, But, not letting people check those boxes. Yeah, put those boxes and check those boxes, and you check those boxes, and you be proud of those boxes. I got to a point finally, and I'm very happy, and it was also almost a relief once I really just started to take ownership of my background, my history, my childhood. I wasn't ashamed to tell people about how I grew up. I wasn't ashamed anymore to tell people who my father and my mother was. I wasn't ashamed that, because a lot of the things I didn't know. I wasn't taught right. I wasn't, I didn't have the examples around me that I needed to do well.
You are a mother, so now you understand. It's like there's only so much that we know. And as we're trying to figure it out, we're teaching our kids as much as we can. But it's the same thing with our parents. Is they grew up in a certain way, and we have to grow up within that environment. But now when we have to be raised and grow up in that environment, is we have the blessing to understand. It's like when you see the big pictures, like, this is my environment, but this is not necessarily who I am.
Right.
It's understanding that your environment doesn't dictate who you are.
Right.
What was the first point in your life that you said, you know what, I'm going to come to God? Do you remember that day, your first conversation that you had with Him?
I think it definitely had to be when I first found out I was pregnant.
Okay.
Can
I ask how old were you?
I was 17 and a half.
Okay.
I was a senior in high school. I remember March. I was graduating in June. And it was pretty, at the time, I just thought, in all actuality, it wasn't as big of a deal as it was made out to be, in the sense that, my mom made it like it was a death sentence.
Okay.
And my father was like, no, that's not what, if this is what you want to do, this is what we're going to do, and you'll be okay. And so I remember just thinking, like, okay, I'm going to be a mother. I need to set myself up so that when my child comes, that, I'm giving them all of the best things that I can give, right? And so one of those things was that I needed to learn, to have a relationship with God and have faith, because I didn't know how difficult it was going to be, but I did know that I was going to be on this journey that not a lot of people go on,
Yeah.
And so it was very important for me to learn about God. My daughter's grandmother, Rosa, she was probably the first one that she really started to talk to me about, Catholic faith and how important the Catholic faith was, and the traditions of Catholicism. And so she started to take me to church, and she would tell me, you got to go to church with me. And at that time, I just wanted to be a better mom. And I thought she was a great mother. And I thought, I need to watch her and see what she does. And she teaches her kids, religion, and she goes to church. So I wanted to go to church. And so I went to church, and I enrolled in adult religion classes so I could get my first communion and my confirmation. Okay. And I was the youngest one. Most of the people there were in their, maybe, late 20s, early 30s, some older. And everybody was just so kind. The priest was kind. And I was pregnant. Mm-hmm. I was very tiny in stature, but I was pregnant. And everybody was just like, yes, come. And they would pray over me, pray pray with me, pray for me. Yeah. And then it was just something that just, kind of stuck with me. And, as most people, I've had ups and downs in my faith and my religion, and just depending on what's happening in life. But I've always gone back to my faith every day. I'm grateful every day that, God provides me with another day. Yeah. I'm very grateful. I live in a grateful state, and I think that's key, because I learned that very young. Okay. To live in a grateful state, because a lot of people like to live in a woe is me state. They feel sorry for themselves. Oh, why does this happen to me? Oh, poor me. I shouldn't be going through this.
They victimize themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And which is very easy to do.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's a cop-out, though. Yeah. Living a good life and a happy life and a grateful life, it's not easy. Mm-mm. But if you really want it, you can go after it and attain it. And once you're able to get it, it's very difficult to go back into the woe is me or victim mindset.
Yeah. If you bring it up from the perspective of relationship with God, and if you bring it back to Jesus, imagine walking the Via Dolorosa with carrying a cross and being spat on and being hit. Mm-hmm. Imagine, instead of saying, why me, mm-hmm. he's like, forgive him, Father. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we get distracted with all the noise, that especially with our own personal life, that we just get lost in the things that are not going the way we want them to go. So we start to, why God? And then we start to victimize ourselves. Mm-hmm. But when you don't have that relationship with Him, you don't see it. You don't see the big picture. Because we have to go through seasons like that to make sure that, okay, if I'm going through this season right now, and instead of victimizing myself, like, thank you, Lord. Because even those seasons are seasons of changes, like the seasons that you went through. Hey, look at where you are today. Mm-hmm. And if God wouldn't have put you through that, you wouldn't be in the position that you are today.
Yeah.
Because you had God in your life, you are able to understand, like, okay, there's something bigger coming behind
Right.
this season.
Right.
And instead of being mad and being upset and just letting yourself go into that hole of depression because of what you're going through, to me, once I figured out what it was to have a relationship with him, I was like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for taking my dad. Thank you for giving my dad cancer. And when you took him at the time that you did, it's like you see life differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, a lot of people don't understand the value of faith, and I think that's the thing is that, I am not one to tell people how to live their life and what they're to believe, but definitely I tell people, you need to have faith. Whatever that faith looks like for you, know that things will be better. Know that there's something else. And I used to, talk about this with my science students because a lot of times, I worked in a Catholic school. I did teach science. So, and kids are very smart. They are the smartest people on this earth, and we as a society undermine their intelligence. And we would have these conversations, and kids would say, some of my students would be like, well, Miss D, you say, science is A, B, and C, but what about this? What about that? Like Catholic Church says this or what. And I said, well, that's where we got to sit down and say, okay, there's something bigger than us that we don't have the answers for. And if you look to it, there's things that happen that science can't explain. And then there's things spiritually that can be explained by science, but then sometimes you can't. And so you just have to believe. And then I would go back, like your own spirit. What is that? You have it. We know it's there, but it's not tangible. We don't know what it's made of. We don't know what kind of, elements or, how the atoms are made up, but we know that our spirit is there. So if we know that science is facts or theories that we take as facts, how do you explain your spirit, right? And so if you go back to faith, that's really what it is, the complexity of how you are made in a scientific manner, right? Just from conception to how the egg and the sperm and the particles and how the atoms all comes up, and to you here now. Yeah. That is miracle upon miracle happening second after second after second, right? But there's kind of also a scientific explanation for it, right? Right. But it took so much for you to get here, and if one little thing could have changed the whole trajectory, right? Yeah. How do you explain it? You can't. You can't. You have to have faith that there's something happening that's bigger than you, that you can explain, and you just have to trust in it, right? Yeah. Being grateful, I have learned, because I've been through so much, which not undermining anybody else's experience in their life. It's
your testimony, it's your life.
But I have known every time there's something going on in my life that is making me uncomfortable, that is making me work harder than I need to, something that's making me emotional, something that's difficult. I already know, all right, God, what are you trying to tell me? Where are you trying to take me? And a lot of us sit there and we're like, oh my God, like my day is so bad. My day's this. And you get up in the morning, you get out to your car and you have a flat tire. That's it. Most people are like, that's it. My day's messed up. That's it, done. And I'm just like, oh, now it's like, oh, okay. Like yesterday, I got double charged for a payment. I was like, oh, okay. No, not today, Satan. Okay, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And, you could tell a lot of people we let those things. And
we let the enemy take control of us.
And I saw something the other day that, I definitely wholeheartedly believe this. Like, why did you get that flat tire? Maybe that's because you need to wait 10, 15 more minutes before you get on the road. Yeah. Because something might have happened to you. Or maybe there's and I've been in situations where I'm running late or I'm extra early. And then I know that, if I was extra early, 10 minutes after I arrived, there was a big accident. Or if I was late, 15 minutes before that, there was an accident. Yeah. And if I would have left at a certain time,
you would have been in the middle of it.
There. And absolutely, that's happened so many times. So I have gotten to the point now where I've learned, okay, when I see those difficult times that are happening, or I'm feeling a certain type of way where I'm down or depressed, I'm like, all right, God, what are you trying to tell me? Yeah. I'm listening. And we don't listen.
We don't.
We don't
We
listen.
don't, because we listen, but we listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
To me, I used to be the guy that I would listen to myself, thinking that I had all the answers, and man, did I struggle.
Yeah.
I struggled because I was always hitting the wall. But it came to me in the form of reading Proverbs 3:5-7. It's trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understanding.
Yeah.
Seek Him in all your ways, and He will guide you on the right path. Do not consider yourself to be wise and walk away from evil. To me, the reason why that changed my life is because I was the opposite. I was letting the enemy, because let's face it, there's spiritual war. And we know the enemy is real. Just the way we know God is real, just the way we know Jesus walked with us, the enemy is there. And he's always trying to win that battle from our attention. When you think about those things that are going not the right way, because they're not going negative. It's just simply if they're not getting the results that you're not looking for, is it because you're following your gut? You're trying to make sure that you push a result. And that is something that a lot of people don't understand. Is people don't listen to God.
Yeah.
People listen to themselves. And if more people in a situation that can actually have power to make changes, if they would simply have the conviction of trusting the Holy Spirit and trusting God, decisions will be so much easier to be made. But it's who are you listening to? Are you listening to yourself?
Right.
Or are you stopping by and saying, like you say, it's like, okay, God, what is really going on here?
Yeah.
And it's a split second that you can either say, God, what is happening here? Or like, shit, why did I have a flat tire? Why is this happening? Is you have a split second in which you can choose to, you're going to have to deal with the situation, but are you going to deal with the situation with the Lord, trusting that there's a reason and just let Him take control of the time? Or are you going to go the left side that is just going to be ruining the rest of your day because of simple flat tire, what you just mentioned?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's something that in this day and age, we, and I say we because I fall into it, that we are so engulfed in outside factors. We've deviated from what really a good person is.
Yeah.
We have deviated from moral values and high ethical standards.
Yeah.
And we've allowed to have people around us that, we glorify them in all aspects, and that's not who we should be glorifying.
Yeah.
We should be glorifying, the bigger person that watches over us, but we also should be trying to get ourselves to that level because we are made within Him, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that was something too that I was taught at a very young age from my mom, was that I remember she'd say, Andrea, you need to stop watching TV because you watch TV and you just get so, tunnel vision and you don't see anything else. And I am very like that. I don't watch TV. I don't watch TV. I have to say I have gotten into the guilty pleasure of being into social media but I know it's too much because I sit there and sometimes I see people and I'm like, why are you guys reciprocating this negativity? Why are you okay with glorifying people with low ethical standards, with a low moral compass?
Yeah.
Why are you okay with, people hurting other people for their own benefit and their monetary gain?
Yeah.
And that's something that, I will say that regardless of how I grew up and how my parents were, they're the bad side of them. Both of my parents were very funny and very nice people when they were sober, when they were in their right state of mind. And I always saw my parents be kind and nice to people. And that's something that I think we have, as a society, gotten away from. We started to categorize people because of what they look like, from where they come from, instead of looking at people as being a human being. And I will say I have gotten far in my life because of the way that I treat people and the expectation that I have from the way people treat me. I am very much no nonsense. I don't allow people to be mean to me. I don't allow people to be judgmental. I do not if I can feel negative energy very quickly. And I do not tolerate that because that's not where I want to be. I grew up in that. That's where I come from, and it's not a good place to be. So,
Wait, sorry to interrupt you. Were you always that strong that you knew, I don't know, I appreciate the way you're talking to me, or were you before you changed, before first of all, what was it that you started to identify how you wanted to be treated? And when you identified that you're not being treated the way you want to, were you always outspoken? Did you always put a stop to it? Or did it take some time for you to develop that personality? So I'm like, enough, it's enough.
Yeah, it took time. And I will tell you, it stems back from, and I just had this conversation with one of my good friends yesterday. It stems from being in school.
Okay.
Like in school, you know, people used to tell me, oh, you know, Andrea, you're so ambitious, you know, you're so outgoing. A lot of people didn't know when I was in school, and I talk about like, you know, elementary, junior high, and high school, people didn't know my home life. Okay. Because for face value, my mom was in the community with us. You know, I played sports, I was in cheerleading, and I did student government. And my mom was very friendly with everybody. So people didn't really know what was going on at home. Okay. So I engaged in school as much as I can. Okay. But I was a very nice kid. So when I started getting into, I would say, the end of junior high, high school, I started having girls be mean to me. I had a lot of mean girls, and I was bullied in high school by multiple girls. But I didn't understand why. I didn't take the cues of jealousy. I didn't take the cues of mean girl. I didn't take the cues of clique. Like, I just wanted to go and hang out with people and have fun and enjoy my school life because home was so bad. So I got to a point that, you know, I was like, what's going on? I don't understand. And then I had my group of cousins. They grew up in San Gabriel Valley. My cousins are amazing. And a lot of people in my family would talk down about them because, you know, they were troublemakers or because, you know, they're disrespectful. But my cousins are solid. They are loyal. They are, what you see is what you get. If they don't like you, they don't like you. If they love you, they love you. And that's it. There's no middle ground. And my cousins are probably some of the realest people that I've ever met in my whole life. And I never had a guess with my cousins. It was always, they meant what they said what they meant, and I never had a guess with them. And I thought that that was the easiest and best way because I wanted people to be that way with people, and I wanted people to be that way with me. I didn't want to have to guess with people. I didn't want to have to pretend I was somebody that I wasn't, because I was really just trying to find myself and just be my true authentic self and be the best version. And my cousins allowed me to do that. My cousins never judged me. They, you know, they always wanted the best of me. They protected me. You know, when somebody was saying something bad about me, my cousins made sure they were the first ones to defend me. And I just thought, that's the best way for me to be. And it really, as I started to grow up as a young woman and, you know, navigate through going from El Monte, taking the bus to Cal Poly in Pomona and being in the street, I couldn't be like, you know, a victim, or I couldn't be fragile because I was in particular situations where I had to stick up for myself. Even going through college, you know, I could remember, I think there was at the time maybe 25 of us out of a population of predominantly white, predominantly Asian at Cal Poly Pomona. And if you really wanted to engage in school and you really wanted to take the most out of it, you had to voice your opinion.
Put yourself out there.
And you had to be, you know, a strong presence. Yeah. Because then you were going to, you know, pushed along or bypassed or whatever, you know. And so I just got to a point where I had to protect myself because I was basically on an island by myself. I didn't have my mother. I didn't have my father. They were dealing with their own issues.
You didn't have your cousins back then at that point?
Yeah, and my cousins, you know, I stayed away at that point from my cousins because, you know, I was trying to get myself right. I was trying to get my family stable. I was trying to figure out what was going to be the best thing for me and my little family, right? And so, it was just, I needed to make sure I protected myself. And the best way to do it is you're not going to be disrespectful to me. You're not going to talk down to me. Yeah. You're not going to talk behind my back. I don't do that.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is there's still a lot of people out there that they don't speak up. They stay quiet. And for whatever reason, they just keep that coming to themselves and they just walk away. And I think that's something that anybody who's out there watching this message is like, it doesn't mean that you're going to go and start a fight. It just means you're going to speak up.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're going to be disrespectful because somebody within your family is saying something that you don't agree with, and then you just stay quiet. It's like, no, you need to let these people know. Because otherwise people are just going to come and keep on stepping all over you and do whatever they want with you. But until we grow that courage, because it's not easy to do, just I'm like, hold on, I hear you, but this is really what is going on. And the simple step of like, hold on, like, no. A lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people struggle with defending themselves. And the Bible tells us that vengeance is mine, leave it to him. But he also shows us to communicate with somebody else and don't let somebody come over and just step all over you. Doesn't mean you're gonna slap somebody. You're just gonna like, hey, hold on. Learn to speak up or change your circle, change your relationships. But I'm happy you're saying this because I know a lot of people that they'll just stay quiet, they'll just put their head down and they'll just keep on taking it.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, I think the reason we are here in our society is the way it is because especially social media has given the wrong people this platform and voices to say things. And other people are now, maybe they're not naturally, aggressive or they're not naturally, confrontational or what have you. And so it has pushed them further back and more introverted. I learned very young that people are always going to have an opinion of you.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Regardless, I like to ask people, what was your first impression of me? Because I love to hear the different aspects, and it's funny. Some people get it right, some people are far-fetched, and it's okay. But everybody's always going to have an opinion. You're going to always have a certain type of reputation, depending on what it is. But I have never been fearful in the sense when I found my voice of voicing my opinion because I know where it stems from. I know that I've always tried to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And maybe I went about it came out the wrong way or incorrectly, or maybe I was too aggressive, or maybe, it wasn't perceived the way it should have been. Right. But I know that my intentions have been good. Yeah. I know that I'm trying to be a better person. Yeah. I'm trying to do right by people. And so I'm unapologetic for it. I know that every relationship that I have cut off, whether it's a friendship, a partnership, a romantic relationship, I have purposely cut it off because I know that it's not good for me. And I don't care whatever the backstory is because I know what my intentions were. Yeah. I know where I stood. I know that I have a very high moral compass, and I know where I am, and I'm solid with that. And anybody could say whatever they want to say about me, but I know the truth.
You know the truth.
Yeah.
Let me kind of bring it back down to your public servant years working for the city. So you left the school. You stopped teaching. Was that your next role? Was at the city?
Oh, no.
What hats were in between?
So I first left when I first left St. Benedict's School in Montebello. One of my friends. I used to play roller derby. That was like my outlet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I used to play roller derby.
And that's tough.
Well, and that's the thing, like I'm very transparent. So when I got into high school and I was going to college and I was a young mom, I had a lot of anger. A lot of anger built up. We did grow up in a lot of violence in our family when we were kids, a lot of abuse. And so that stemmed over to my young adult years. And so I found myself, I was fighting a lot. And then
never would have thought about you. When you're saying the first impression, never would have thought that. You're so friendly, you're so nice, your smile. I never would have thought that.
And I have always been friendly and nice. It just, I got to a point where I just felt like I always had to defend myself.
Okay.
And and when you grow up in a certain way, your first thing is physical. So I did get to a point in my life where I was like, okay, I can't be doing this anymore. I have a career. I have kids. I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm going to get hurt. Yeah. And, it's funny now, but at the time it was like I worked my heart and soul into my career, into my education, to fight all of these barriers, and then I'm going to be a dumbass because of somebody else that's, projecting onto me. I needed to stop. So that's why I started playing roller derby.
Okay.
I needed an outlet. My father had just died. I was going through a divorce. I mentioned that. And I needed an outlet. And it was great because it was aggressive. And
it is an aggressive sport. Do you still play once in a while?
No.
You still rollerblade? You still go out there?
I still skate. I still skate. I skate with my friends. I skate in the street sometimes. So you might see me.
Okay.
So anyways, one of my girlfriends that I met, I had told her that I was, really tired and I wanted to leave. And so she told me, hey, we're hiring for this position. So I started as a marketing coordinator with her.
Are you living in Alhambra at this point?
No, I was living in I was living in Chino at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was living in Chino at the time. I was already married. And then, so I went to go work with her. And it was great because, all I had ever known was education. I didn't know anything outside of education. Okay. So I get into this field, and it was Prime Wire and Cable. And they're awesome company, awesome people to work for. And I learned extension cords. I learned lighting. Okay. I was marketing coordinator, part of the shipping department. Okay. So I learned primary, secondary, I can't say the word, but the third one. And so I learned primary packaging and secondary packaging.
So you reinvented yourself from being an educator to learning a whole different set of skills.
Yeah, but I did. Okay. it was transferable skills, I would edit their instructions, like the instructions that would come in the box for the product. Okay. And so it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I learned about, transferring my skills, which I didn't know was possible. Mm-hmm. And then I had another opportunity come along where I was working for a plumbing company. I did really good with that. But, jealousy doesn't always come in the form of female to female. And that's what I want to tell. You talk about other girls. Sometimes jealousy comes in the form of male to female or female to male. And I found myself in
this is not jealousy that you're speaking about? Is this a different type of relationship
It was a superior of mine. He was jealous. I would say sexist and racist. Okay. And the first time I had ever really, really experienced that in blatant form. And when I brought it up to my HR department, I got fired. The first time I had ever gotten fired from a job.
Because you brought that up to HR. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And at the time, I didn't know the labor laws. I didn't know laws about sexism or racism. And so I was just like, they gave me my severance package. They gave me my bonus. They didn't deny my unemployment. Mm-hmm. So I was like, good, that's fine. I'm good to be out of that. I don't want to do that. So then it was a very big blow to my ego. I had never been fired from a job. And then just, the circumstances surrounding it. So then I left, and then I had gotten offered another job in teaching. And so I went back to teaching for a year. And then COVID hit. Okay. And everybody that's in education and knows teaching during COVID was probably one of the most difficult, besides working in the medical field and the first responders field. And again, my kids were not in a good space, my own children. And so I decided that, okay, I need to take a step back and I need to go back, and my kids mean everything to me. So I stopped working, and I just was focusing on my kids, especially my son. My son, his mental health was really deteriorating, and trying to get them through high school. And then so took some time off, and then I was like, okay, I can't stay home. I'm not the type of person to stay home and not work. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And trying to get back into the working field, I was applying. Nothing was hitting. I would get an interview, and then I wouldn't make it to the next step, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm not above anybody. I just need to make money. I need to provide for my family. So one of my best friends, she's a Chef Fiona. She's awesome. She was flying a job for her place, and they were looking for a dishwasher. I haven't told a lot of people this story.
I'm glad we get to record it.
Yeah, and I said, so I call her and I said, hey, hire me. And she says, hire you for what? And I said, for your dishwasher, you need a dishwasher, don't you? And she goes, I am not hiring you to be a dishwasher. She's like, you have a damn master's degree. And I said, girl, I was like, money is green and money don't care if you have a master's degree or a dishwasher. And I said, I don't care. I need to provide for my family. And I said, just in the meantime. And I said, I'll find something. I said, but I need to start making money. And she says, all right. And it was probably one of the most funnest experience I ever had.
Yeah.
I was her dishwasher. I learned so much about what she did as a chef.
Okay.
I think it was like 2 weeks in, she got sick. She had to go. She was in the hospital, and I had to take over for her.
What? Which restaurant is this?
It was in a senior living facility.
Okay.
And she had some issues with her, insides, and I remember I was on the phone with her, and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And mind you, when I was a kid, my mom never really taught me how to cook. I wasn't the cleaner. I was the one that Andrea has schoolwork to do. Andrea needs to study. So my sisters are great cooks, and their houses are immaculate. Me, not so much.
So my wife, similar to my wife, because my wife, when she was growing up, she was all into softball. They would always have her out on the field playing. She had a full ride scholarship to play in Oklahoma, but she was never in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You bring all her sisters, man, they cook really good.
Yeah.
My wife is not so much of the cook, but she has other talents. But you brought that up, I'm like, yeah, that's like my wife.
Yeah, and so, and mind you, I, go throughout college, I would work as, a tutor or a sub, but my main bread and butter, I was a bartender, and I worked in restaurants. So, getting the kitchen, it wasn't an unfamiliar space, but that capacity, these are older people. They have specific dietary needs.
True.
Thank God it was only 20 people, I think it was. But, yeah, I did that for a couple of weeks, and she came back, and then it was funny.
If I may, you said two things that I kind of want to bring up. Money is green.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time, ego gets in the middle of what we need to do to get out of a certain situation. It's like, how am I, having a master's degree, going to go and watch this? I'm like, I got to get through it.
Yeah.
I got to get my kids through. I got bills I got to pay.
I got to survive.
And a lot of people, just the simple fact of their ego gets on the way, they don't go out and they don't do what they have to just to dig themselves out of the hole.
Yeah, and I think too, at the time, I had felt myself getting really down, just a few years prior, I had got fired, and then I couldn't find a job. And I had, if I really wanted to, I could go back into education, but I didn't want to.
Okay.
But I've always said I have no problem. I can figure out how to survive. I'm a survivor. But yeah, but it was really good for my mental health to get out, to go sit with elderly people, to talk to them, to.
Yeah, that was a way for the Lord to show him, like, Andrea, hey,
yeah,
let me show you something different. And instead of taking it, sorry to interrupt you, instead of taking like, why this to me, it's like you went through it, and look, it brought you what you were looking for at the time on the season.
Well, I also knew after everything that I had been through, this isn't anything. Like, I'm fine. It's just temporary. I'll figure it out. I'll get to where I need to get to. There's a plan. God has a plan for me, and I just need to trust the process. So I was there with her. It was a great time, probably one of the funnest times in my life. And then I was applying to get into the education department at the San Manuel Indians, and I had and Yamava now. But, again, would go in for interviews, and then I wouldn't get the position, And then so finally one day I was sitting at home, and I was drinking some cocktails, and I was like, I saw there was a position for a bartender. And I said, you know what?
Money's green.
Money's green. I applied, and then they were doing a big hiring, thing. And so I went in. And I remember I interviewed, and I wish I knew his name because he was an awesome guy. And I go to interview with him, and he says, okay, Andrea, I'm looking at your application, and you applied for bartender, but I have a education resume here. And he's like, so are you applying for education, or are you applying for the bartender? And I said, no, I'm applying for the bartender. And he's like, oh, okay. And I went in there, and I remember he was asking me how to make drinks. I was a bartender for almost 10 years. Okay. And I was a bartender when there was no female bartenders.
Okay.
I worked up in Universal Studios. I worked in different dive bars. I made good money. And I was on it. He asked me to make simple drinks, and I blew a blank. I drew a blank. I couldn't think. I couldn't think of the names of whiskeys. I couldn't think of how things were mixed.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, oh my gosh. So then he sat there and he's like, okay, Andrea, he's like, you can't even tell me what whiskeys, and I'm a whiskey drinker. So I was like, and he's like, so why should I hire you? I said, look, first off, I need a job. Second of all, I'm a hard worker. I'm loyal. And I was like, I know management. I've been in education. I can do this job. I said, I just need a refresher. It's not a big deal. And I said, you'll have a good employee. And so he said, okay, I'll hire you. And sure enough, I got behind the bar and it was like getting back in a bicycle. But working at the casino, it really was invigorating and just brought new life to me because I was working in an environment with a bunch of young people. I had always been used to being, when I was younger, the youngest one. And then I got to a level where I was with all my colleagues. We were all the same age. And now I realized that was a different stage in my life. All these kids, or not kids, but young people that worked with me were younger than me. They were the ages of my kids.
Okay.
They were ages of the students, that would have, kids that would have been my students. And they were just so bright and filled with life and hope. And it was very good for my heart and soul.
Okay.
But it did really bring back the emphasis on how to treat people. The casino is one of the hardest places to work because people that go, the patrons in a casino that go in there, it has to do with money.
True.
They're losing money, or maybe they are faced with addiction, whether it's alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction. And so the people, the patrons, and the casino, the Yamaval Casino does a great job. Like they post, if you think you have a gambling addiction, they give us training on how to spot, sex trafficking, how to, cut people off with, alcohol and things like that. So the casino does a great job of prepping their employees, but it's the actual patrons. And you see some pretty horrible character of people that wouldn't normally behave that way in regular society. I had encounters with people that were nurses, that were accountants, that were lawyers, that were, supposed to be different pillars of the community. And when they go into that casino, they're completely different people. And it emphasized to me, and it really tugged at my heart of my moral compass of how to treat people. And I was known as reprimanding patrons. You're not going to speak to my colleague that way. You're not going to speak to the other bartender. You're not going to speak to me that way. And, I got a lot of heat from my management. But I will say that, they were patient with me. I made a lot of good people that I worked with. The management there, like I said, was awesome. And then I was there for, I think, like 2.5, 3 years.
Oh, wow. You were there for a little while. Wow.
Yeah. And they have, a little tangent, but the Yamaval Casino San Manuel Bantam Indians, they take care of their employees. They have really good benefits. They help you set up your retirement. They have a great, employee cafeteria. The food is super cheap there. They take their employees every year to, I believe it's Universal Studios, and they shut it down for their employees.
Oh, that is really
So they
neat.
take really good care of their employees. It's a great organization to work for. So I worked there for about 2.5, 3 years, and then I was able to get in the city of Riverside. And then I left to go to the city.
You're not afraid to reinvent yourself.
No.
And I think that is very important for people to hear. It's like, don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Because that is something that I've gone through a lot of different reinventions. And every time it's a better version. Yeah. To the point that I now look on the mirror and I like the person that I see. And I will look back 10 years or even 15 years ago. I will look at the guy that was playing music and doing drugs and drinking every day.
Right.
And I see the person I'm like, I'm glad that I went through what I had to go through to get to where I'm at today.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's something, too, that, you're never better than anybody else.
Yeah.
You're only trying to be better than yourself.
Yeah.
And, you're only in competition with yourself. And, I remember at the time when I was working at the casino bartending, this girl that, she was my friend, she's not my friend anymore, she was really hard on me. And she was like, what are you doing? You have a master's degree, you have all this education, why would you, stoop so low. And I was like, stoop so low? I said, I'm making good money. And this has paid my bills. And I work for a great company. Like, who are you to judge me and what I'm doing? And this is a placeholder. I knew I wasn't going to be there for a long time.
Right.
When I first got there at the casino, I had a couple of managers offer me to be a manager of the restaurant or to go into that side. And I told them no, because I don't want to get used to the money. And this is not where I want to be. This is not where I see myself. I worked in restaurant business. I worked in, hospitality when I was younger. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. I like the money, but it's not for me. I don't have the patience. When people are rude or condescending, I don't have any tolerance for that. That was not my place. I knew it. It was a placeholder. I needed to figure out what my next, venture was going to be.
So, and we're not going to talk about it into specifics right now, but you're coming through new changes. We talked about them behind the camera, and we'll leave them behind the camera because some things we can bring them up, yet it's not the right time. But what are the next 3 years looking for you? You're about to reinvent yourself once more. You're about to go through that. So how are you visualizing that change? How are you embracing it? And what has the Lord allowed you to identify that you got to do different now?
I love that question. The one thing and the best thing that this has taught me, changing, going from leaving teaching, working in the casino and working for the city, and now working in nonprofit, I have really found that my passion and what fills my heart is civic service.
Okay.
Giving back to people, helping people, making connections between people and uniting people. That's very important to me. And I didn't know that before. I know that now. And that makes me feel good, because now that discovery is what's leading me into the next chapter. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen. I have an idea of where I want to go, but I know that that's definitely going to be in the center of it, of helping people, giving back to the community that I'm at, staying connected to Riverside, because Riverside has really given me the opportunity. Riverside embraced me as a person, and it allowed me to explore, expand, and just be the best version of myself that I could be, with not holding back, without not trying to tiptoe around people. People looked at me, my big glasses, my red lips, my black hair, and know who I am, and they were, know the capabilities that I can do, and didn't doubt that, and allowed me to just take my talents and give it back in the sense of service. And so that's definitely going to be at the center of what my next adventure is. What that looks like, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. I like that. I like the not knowing, because I really do, like I said, I have a strong faith, and I know wherever I'm going to go, it's exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I'm okay with that.
To wrap it up, because I know you gotta let me in to be at. What are the values that Andrea lives by? What are your values?
My values, first and foremost, is a strong faith in God, and a strong faith in prayer, in letting things be, and not being a victim, and not blaming others for things that have happened to me or things that I have gone through. Most importantly, being honest, and being loyal, and being direct, and not budging because it's a trend, not budging because I might be liked by somebody, not budging because it means I'm going to make more money.
Ooh, that's huge. Not selling yourself just to make money.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I've lived that life for a very long time. And here's the thing, it's a lonely life. It's a very lonely life.
Agree.
But it's okay. I'm very happy. I know who's around me. I trust who's around me. I feel safe with who's around me in my inner circle. But it is a very lonely space. And people, that's, as human beings, we like to be around people. We're social beings. So when you're secluded, it's very difficult to be okay with that. to be comfortable in that and to embrace it. And I learned a long time ago, people don't think like me. People didn't grow up the way that I did. Even, the culture that I am, I think on my mom's side, we're like 4th or 5th generation from California. On my dad's side, very similar. But I'm still Mexicana. I'm still Latina, but I'm from the United States.
Yeah.
I'm from California, but I'm not an Inland Empire Chicano. I'm a Los Angeles Chicano, and those are two completely different things, And so it's being okay with that, and being different is okay, Even my cousins, they tease me. I love my cousins, and I am very different from them, but I'm not. I'm very similar for them, and that's okay too, So it's just being okay with knowing that I have a high moral compass and not worrying about what other people are thinking, because I know where my heart's at, and I know my intentions. If I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. I will say I'm sorry. But it takes a lot. If I do something bad or I do something intentionally to somebody, it's usually because I'm doing it to protect myself. Okay. I'm usually doing it to cut that tie and make sure that it's, burn that bridge to make sure it's completely burned and we can't go back. And it's usually to protect myself.
Yeah, we all have our coping mechanisms. And a lot of the times it's good to do that. It's just, there's people that the Lord has taken away from my life. Absolutely. And I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
Because some relationships that are not going to steer in the right direction, or they're going to lead you in a position that you're going to be doing things that you shouldn't be doing, things that make you say things from who you are, typically, it's let the Lord take those relationships away from you. Just trust Him.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Or you're in a place that maybe people want to be, but they're not ready to be there yet.
Yeah.
And that's okay. They don't have the experience yet, or they don't have the qualifications yet, and you've already been there. Yeah. And it's a hard pill for people to swallow, and they're just not ready to be there yet. And they're not ready to, be honest with themselves.
Yeah. Well, Andrea, with that, I think that's the best way to end it up, to wrap it up. We're 11:34. I'll be here by 11:45. Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for letting me get to know you, honestly, a lot better.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a quick summary of who Andrea really is now.
Yeah.
And that I'm very grateful. And I hope this message gets to those people that are going through similar situations of what you might be going through. If you're 17 and a half, you're about to have a child. It will be a life-changing experience, but it will be for the better.
Yeah,
honestly.
Absolutely.
It will be for the better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kids are awesome. They're amazing. If it wasn't for my kids, I wouldn't be the person that I am.
Same here. I remember when I held Jade for the first time. Her birthday is next week on the 31st. My life changed the minute I had her on my hands. And for all of you who are doubting to let that life come into fruition, don't think about that. Just come and trust in the Lord. There's a reason why the Lord sends us our kids. And if you are a parent who is not ready to be there for your kids, please just open up your heart to be a present parent, because it's not easy to do those things too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree 1,000%.
I appreciate all of you. Andrea, how can people follow you on social media?
So I am on KRCB_Andrea is my Instagram. I'm on TikTok too, A-team.7. I don't really use Facebook or anything. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, and Andrea De Leon is my LinkedIn. So follow her. Make sure that you stay in touch with her. Ask her questions. She could be an amazing mentor for some of the ladies that are going through similar situations. If you find that you can connect with her, I'm kind of throwing you under the bus. No,
but I know you. I know you're the type of female that will love to help somebody else get through the challenge that they're going through. Congratulations for all your success, everything you've done.
Thank you.
May the Lord continue to look upon you and your family for the new chapter that He has for you. And thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Appreciate
you. Thank you, Tony.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This podcast brought to you by Little Financial. For all your commercial insurance needs, health services, contact us. Have a blessed day.